Hi and welcome to Nollywood Film Club. I'm Mr. C, a Virgo critic. I hope you're doing well. I am recording on a slightly new device, so apologies if the audio isn't as good as it usually is. Anyway, this episode we're doing something slightly different. We are basically completing a trilogy. Um, as you can see from the title, we're still on Madame Koi Koi. But it's slightly different. I do appreciate when filmmakers take the hot seat and come to discuss with us. So I just hope you enjoy our interview with Michael Ndiomu. But welcome to Nollywood Film Club, everyone. I am on here with Michael Ndiomu. We have a different thing going on today. Usually we do discuss Nollywood movies, TV shows, have conversations. I guess this kind of conversation every week discussing a Nollywood film. But today we do have the one of the producers of the Origins, Madame Koi Koi. And so there are a lot of questions. We're going to go through just a few, but hopefully we should be done within half an hour from my side, and then we'll open it up for the audience to have a Q&A. So this should be a relatively short one. So, but thanks, Michael, for joining us. Uh, are you I have are you are you ready for the interview to begin? Really, you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, thank you. All right, so first off, I noticed that you were a banker. So I've heard of many interesting professional transitions to Nollywood. Can you discuss what motivated your transitioning from going from banking to Nollywood?
Okay, so first, it wasn't a transition from banking to Nollywood in that sense. I had left banking in 2015, and I mean, let's just say I was disillusioned with my employer at the time, and so I had taken a break, and then I went to film school. But be- before I went to film school, I had what's the word? I was watching TV one night and I saw this cases of kidnapping in the north, and I had just put my daughter to bed, and so I was thinking, right, um, if this happens to me, if my daughter is kidnapped, what was I willing to do? And so I had this idea for a story, and I sat down and I started typing on my computer. And by 2 a.m. the next morning, I had finished writing it. And then I approached a few people I knew who were filmmakers and said, "Oh, I'd like to see how we can make this into a movie." And I didn't get any headway. I spoke to a few people. Okay, can I put money in your film so that I can learn the process of filmmaking, because I think this will be a good story. It didn't happen. So I ended up going to film school, New York Film Academy. Then I came back and the next set up a film company. And yeah, I did a few things. I went back into banking incidentally in 2018 for some consulting, and then helped somebody set up a bank in 2020. But again, I never lost my passion for filmmaking and storytelling generally. So I've been writing stories. I've written one novel I'm about to publish. I've written several short stories and all that. I've done a cooking show. I've done a web series. I've done a reality TV show for En Vivo, right? And then I wanted to make a feature. And in the 2021 AFRIF, I met J. Franklin Jitubo, who's the writer and director. And we spent quite a bit of time together. And by December of that year, we looked through all the stories we wanted to do, and we decided, okay, let's start with this one. So we have several projects we are going to work on together, and so we decided to start with this one. So in a nutshell, that's how I got to um, where we are today, and I started making movies. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, no, thanks. That you've actually touched on a couple of other things that I wanted to ask you about. So, you've written, you've produced, you've directed, and I think you've acted before. Uh, is there any particular area you like to focus on? Are you settled in the producer role, or are you just happy trying new different things in filmmaking?
Okay, so I think my natural fit is the producer role, because producing essentially involves choosing the right stories and getting the right resources to produce the content at the quality you want and then take it to market. So, in that sense, I think, and of course, funding it. In that sense, I think I am better suited for that. So I work with people who are much better than me in the other areas. So script writing, directing. I've written a few scripts myself, which I always work with several writers that I respect. And even after I finish writing, I send to them, they tear it apart, and we keep working and working and working. The film I want to do next, like what version 9 of the current iteration of the story. Something I've been working on for years, and yeah, so we'll shoot next year. But I think my natural position, for want of a better word, is producing.
Okay.
But yes, I can do
Okay. Yeah. So talking about working about people who are better yourselves, it actually reminded me of something he also said in an interview where I think he said that there are people in Nigeria that if you pay them enough, will do things to a quite. I think he said you want to international level, but let me even just take it as a high level. Do you genuinely do you still hold that? Do you believe that like Nigeria is filled with that kind of talent and in filmmaking, talented filmmakers?
I believe Nigeria has talented filmmakers. I personally believe that you will rarely find any field of endeavor that you don't have very, very talented and experienced Nigerians. I mean, everywhere you go in this world, you see Nigerians. You go to film festivals. There's never been a film festival I went to that Nigerians either working out of Africa or working out of the rest of the world aren't, racking up awards and racking up praises. I mean, whether you're talking of art house films, you're talking of commercial films, check, you'll see Nigerians. I mean, I'm watching Netflix, I'm watching Amazon. You go through the credits, you're seeing Nigerians, right? So I personally believe we have the people, but you need to learn how to manage your people. You need to treat your people right. You need to give them the tools they need. And then first, you also need to be sure of exactly what you want, exactly what you are trying to accomplish, right? So that you don't, one, end up wasting money. Two, you don't spend the money and get a substandard product. I mean, we've seen films that people say, oh, they spent X amount of money, and then you see the outcome, and then you're wondering, like, what the heck is this? So yeah, I believe we have the people, and I believe we can do good stuff in Nigeria by Nigerians. Yes.
Okay. So one of the other, I guess, things that it feels like it's a taboo in Nigeria to discuss budgets. And honestly, one of the reasons why I ask is for your movie, especially, for The Origins, Madame Koi Koi. It really looked like it's one of the nicest movies that we've seen this year, both in terms of set and just the general visual look. And it's weird because like usually we would think for a film of that looked that good that we would have heard so much about it, either in terms of the money they've spent, or it's usually coming from filmmakers that have been in the industry for a while, and so like they don't have to do that much marketing and stuff. So I guess like what does it take for people who are relatively not big game players? What kind of budget are we talking about? What's the range for people who aren't in that range to achieve that kind of look? money wise?
Okay, so first, this was a project by two people who really, really believed in this story. Um, I mean, as you know, Madame Koi Koi is something, I mean, lots of us grew up with. Of course, I never saw Madame Koi Koi myself, but my sister will swear that, she heard the footsteps. So we wanted to do something that will be a statement. So when you look at the sets in Madame Koi Koi, I mean, you look at the Oba's Palace, you look at the shrine, we built everything, right? The furniture, when Baba Wale and Fajimi were talking, we built that all that furniture. The hostels, we bought all those beds, those bunk beds, the mattresses, right? Um, we had a crew of 85 people. Grip alone was 12 people. A camera team was what, 15? Right? We wanted it to look that good. We needed it to look that good. So I mean, we spared no expense. I mean, this took 2 years of my life. This took running in the middle of shoot, me running back to Lagos, to go raise more money. Because I mean, we were spending 1.2 million a day on hotels alone, right? So it cost a pretty penny. In terms of how much specifically, um, I mean, not sure my executive producers will be
What
happy
what
with me,
about
but
range? What about
uh,
range? Do you have a range for us, like between 80 to 150 million, anywhere?
80,
I,
80.
I'm just I'm just saying for this thing
Okay,
so that it can cover any this thing.
no. So I mean, so it was between 200 and 300 million naira.
Wow. Okay, that's
Yeah.
actually that's
And then no, actually, it wasn't supposed to be that high, right? It wasn't supposed to be that high. But if you remember, we shot this film in between May and June last year. We were supposed, by the time we made the initial budget, it was about 100. But then diesel prices went up. I don't know if you remember, around March last year, diesel prices went up, and I mean, everybody just added money to their bills. But we had to just go and start. As at the time we were mobilizing to go to Abeokuta, we had what, 50 million, right? But we had to move, so we moved. Um, and then, like I mentioned earlier, in the middle of shoot, I had to run back to Lagos. I had to go and, hold some of my friends and family and actually, one of my former bosses. I went to his house and I said, "Oga, you people cannot let shame catch me, right? So give me money." And even after shoot, because we had an extension, right? Um, I mean, and you know what happens when you extend a shoot. Something else to note, because we were shooting in Abeokuta, a lot of the equipment, is not available in Abeokuta. So we had to go with everything, right? So, and then, of course, your schedule may change. So we had to go with everything. So a car rig that you may only need to shoot for 2 days, we had to have it there. Your cranes, your jeeps, your drones, everything we had to have. Your Steadicam and your Steadicam operator, you know how much those people charge, the good ones. And then our gaffer, I mean, easy, fantastic guy. We fought every day, right? There are days when the guy he's setting up a scene, he's taking 6 hours, right, for a scene that when you see it in the movie, max 4 minutes, right? This guy is saying, "No, Baba, give me time. I need to do it. I need to do it." So, I mean, it cost more than we planned, but at the end of the day, I'm really, really happy with the final thing we did. I mean, look at the SFX and the VFX, right? These things cost money. But again, what I'll tell you is we did everything in Nigeria. We did all Everybody we worked with were Nigerians. We made original music for this film. Um, certain sets. I mean, we had to build twice, right? Because of actor schedule, somebody had to leave. There are times that we had to use body doubles to shoot certain scenes again. So we had to recreate the entire scene. We had to recreate the specific lights, lighting conditions, and all that. So yes, so that was the budget, and actually it wasn't the budget. Actually, what we spent. Yeah, I even mentioned in one interview that we couldn't pay some of the actors, right? So the agreement we had with some of the actors, some of the bigger actors, was okay. We'll pay you your balance. We'll pay you this much out of your balance, and then when we sell, we pay you your balance. So yes, so that's what we did, just so that we could make this film. And
Yeah,
again, the director owns a 5.1 Dolby audio sound post production facility, right?
yeah,
Yes. So I mean, all the post production work, the sound work, everything was done there. So these are all additional costs that did not even go into the cash we spent. You get. So
yeah.
yeah, I as the producer, I still haven't been paid. you know, I haven't been paid my fees. Right.
Right.
So yeah, but we built all those sets. The classrooms again, we had to put louver plates, we had to paint, and then age the paint so it doesn't look like brand new. That the costumes. That school is an actual school, but of course you can't use their uniform, right? So we had six tailors on set, making those costumes, making those uniforms for all those students. All those students they were all extras. They had to be paid. They had to be fed. I mean, this is at Biokota. You tell them to come by 12 noon, they will come by 8. So they will eat morning, they will eat afternoon, they will eat night. You know. So I mean, these costs just add up. Yeah.
Right. It sounds like you're technically one of the investors. So, but I was going to ask, and we'll come to audience feedback, but like, what has been like your investor feedback been like?
Investors, investors are investors. They're looking for return on investment. So um, they waited. Okay, when is this thing? When are we getting paid? When are we getting paid? When are we getting paid? I mean, because we shot this film last year. By post production took 6 months. Right. And so by December, January, the film was ready. We had sent it out to the streamers. And then we got feedback. Oh, we like it. We love it. Oh, we don't like it. It's too long. It's too this. It's too that. It's too scary. It's. And then, of course, the investors will be putting pressure on me. Yeah, right. And I mean, I also had bank loans, right? I also had bank loans, which I was servicing the interest, right? So, I mean, personally, it had to be on my name. So all of that was going on. Investors need their money. But right now, with what has happened with the response by the audience to the film, because they're all very happy now. But trust me, they weren't happy 4 months ago. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of time has uh, went into this. For after we've wrapped up production and you're thinking about how to distribute now. So what were the options that were on the table, and like how did you finally end up with Netflix, or was Netflix always the ending point for you?
No, so for us from day one, it was always international streamer. We never planned for this film to go to Nigerian cinema, and the reason is simple. I used to own cinemas, right? I used to own cinemas, and I know that the unit economics does not work. If your film costs more than 30 million naira to make in Nigeria, don't take it to cinema. You're going to lose money. And this was last year's numbers. Today, with the numbers we see this year, I mean, it's even more risky, right? So cinema was never an option. It was always Netflix or Amazon or Paramount. Now, as it turns out, Netflix closed the deal, and so yeah, here we are.
So even like in landing, you talk about international streamers, but even like in landing on Netflix as opposed to Amazon Prime, is that like just a business decision, or is that maybe something else in terms of eyeballs that could potentially get on your on you know on your film, or is there anything else that goes into that? Just is that just business?
So it's a bit of both. I mean, as we all know, Netflix is Netflix, right? However, Amazon's got the big box. Um, but as the negotiations went on, Netflix was more keen on this. And we found out later, as I'm sure you are aware, Netflix had their own Madame Koi Koi already on fire, so the soup, the soup was almost ready. Sorry, Amazon had their own Madame Koi Koi origin story, which was done by Nemsia, BB Shashure's company. Great guy, great filmmaker. You know, so I mean, I understood why they weren't as eager as a Netflix to do it. So yes, I would say it was a business decision, and Netflix was simply more eager to push ahead with the negotiations, and so we closed with Netflix, and then Netflix wanted it for Halloween, right? So yeah, that's why we went for Netflix.
Okay, that makes sense. In terms of the it being a two-parter, and in this kind of web series thing, was that always the plan? It reminds me
Okay, okay,
of
okay. No, it
Hollywood.
wasn't. No, it
Okay,
wasn't. No, it wasn't. And I think if you've watched it, it should be clear to you. I mean, for somebody like you, I'm sure you figured it out already,
right.
right?
Thank
Yeah. It wasn't. It wasn't. It's not a series. It was never. It was so. We shot this film because I mean I read the script like 10 times, right? So after we shot it, the first edit, right, was one long film, and then Jay Franklin, the director, goes, let's switch this up a bit, right? And let's make it like like one of these Quentin Tarantino things where chapter one, this happens, and chapter two, this happens. So that's how we then split it. So it's one film, right? So the chapter one is um the awakening, right? And chapter two is the Emir song, the spirit of vengeance. So we cut it as one film with two chapters. However, when we closed the deal with Netflix, they said, for Halloween, they would like us to separate it into two parts, as in actual separate parts, and then they will release one part in, on the 31st. That's Halloween, and then the second part on the 7th of November. Again, they were looking at. I'm sure they had the data, and they were looking at audience attention and the length of the film. The whole thing is about 3 hours, 18 minutes. I guess they felt that you are not Martin Scorsese. Nobody's going to sit and watch your film for 3 hours, right? So they made that call, and I think we agreed with it. But I mean, if you look at Netflix now, we're still number one. So I guess it now worked out for us because people will go watch part one, go watch part two, then go back and watch part one and two together. And yeah. So again, to answer the question directly, no, that's not how the script was written. But by the time you're having the commercial negotiations, I mean, you have to be realistic. So yes, this is how it turned out.
Okay. And what does marketing for a Netflix series feel like as opposed to, you've worked on other.
So for Netflix films, right? It's quite interesting. You so this wasn't an acquisition, right? So it's not a Netflix original, right? Now, as with any business, they will prioritize their own films. So if you see a Netflix original or you see a Netflix present, then they will put real money behind it. So they will do the premieres, they will do the, sponsored posts. They'll push it and push it and push it. Ours was a licensing deal, so we had to do our own marketing. So, but the good thing for us, I mean, I'm really so grateful for the actors. Oh, by the way, I can see quite a number of them here. Um, I mean, the actors really supported the push, the media as well. You know, because Madam Koiko is an authentic Nigerian, really African urban legend. So a lot of media, we had a lot of free media support, radio stations, TV, print media, blogs. You know, they pushed and they pushed and they pushed. Yeah, so Netflix will push more for their original content. So we had to do the heavy lifting on this one. Yeah.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. This is the title of this. Your film is called "The Origins." Madam
Yes.
Koiko. There's a column after the origins. Are there other origin stories you have in the canon? Is that what you're hinting at?
No, what we're hinting at is it's actually two things. One, there are other origin stories. I mean, I mean, Nigeria has so many urban legends, so there are others. But then we're also looking at this is the origin, Madam Koi Koi. We can then now go on. I mean, if you see the way we ended it, we left room for a sequel, right? So we can now do a sequel that is now just Madame Koi Koi to then explore the different aspects of this legend, the different aspects of this myth. I mean, there's so many variations. If you go to the east, you hear one version. If you go to the south, you hear another version. If you go to Ghana, for example, you hear a different version. If you go to Kenya, it's a different version. So we can then go and now do a series, where we can then explore the different aspects of this myth.
Okay. So from your end, what has the audience feedback felt like, especially from your end, especially we have our small corner of the internet where we I know what our people feel like, but like from your end, just obviously you would have heard from many more people. What has it felt like? Give me both after chapter 1 and after chapter 2.
Okay, so the response to chapter 1 was, I mean, mind blowing for me. I mean, you see films come on Netflix, they start at, I mean, they enter top 10, they start at maybe number 8, and then they gradually work their way up. I mean, this film opened straight at number 1, and I was shocked, like, wow, really? And then the feedback has been so good. Um, I mean, there are people who are upset about certain things in the film, but overall, the response has been fantastic. I mean, way beyond what I could even have hoped for. So I mean, I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. I mean, conversations every day. Um, Now some I saw something some actors did where they take scenes from the movie and they try to recreate it, and it's been really good, really good. The young actor who played Lachey was almost mobbed when he went to drink somewhere with his friends. You know, I mean that tells you people have watched this film, and that tells you that people really connect with the things that happened in this film, and then the nostalgia value as well. People have watched this film in my village in Bayelsa, you know, and yeah, so the response has been really encouraging.
All right, no, that's good. All right, so there was some obviously criticisms that came through, and we're probably going to touch on just a couple of them. So I guess like one of the first things I wanted to ask was whether do you feel there's a line we should not cross in filmmaking in terms of some things maybe we should not show, or is there or we should censor, or is this something that is it a context thing, or do you think there's no line at all where like a filmmaker should be able to do whatever they want to do?
I think censorship is a slippery slope, right? I mean, we all live in Nigeria where the average government official is a stark raving armed robber. Yet they get so moralistic about certain things, you know. Um, so I think censorship again, like I mentioned, is a very slippery slope, and we need to be careful, how we use that word, especially as it relates to art. Right now, having said that, um, you don't just wake up and go about trying to offend people, right? You don't go around trying to belittle people's suffering. You don't go around trying to belittle people's pain. You also have to be sensitive to people's lived experiences, right? Um, so what we tried to do was to focus on the myth, the legend, and we asked ourselves, what could have motivated this thing, right? What could have motivated this spirit? And I mean, we spent quite a lot of time agonizing about this. And I mean, I know the scenes to which you are referring. And incidentally, the actress herself is here. She's actually listening. And we did we did everything to make things easy for her. We did everything to make her feel comfortable before we did that scene. And so, yes, I get you. Censorship is not something I take lightly. At the same time, you don't go around trying to belittle people's pain. You don't deliberately go around trying to offend people's sensibilities. That's what I'll say to that.
No, I agree with you there completely. It's especially given our context, as you rightly pointed out, with the way the government moves. And yes, to some degree, also is worth taking into context people's sensibilities. So I guess like one of the pushbacks that we had from in our section, and I think myself included in this, was like we had especially I liked that we decided to go gore, and one of the things that I loved about this was the use of practical effects, and we saw some blood, but it seemed one of the parts for us that felt uneven was like it felt that we didn't get the gore or the killings were. I think one of the things I said was like it would have been nice to see maybe Madame Koi Koi like really tear some limbs apart
Yeah,
and like
things about
move
rip out
people's limbs left,
intestines.
right, and center. But it felt like we didn't get that. But
So
yes, but there
they died
was
too easy,
they died. They
right?
did easily, and it did not feel satisfying. And I think just for me, one thing that would have alleviated some of the sexual assault pushback, because one of the pushback is like there's a lot of concentration on it where it might not feel necessary, is that we didn't even get like these other things that where would have gone, oh, maybe it's just that kind of film where it's gory and like there's the killings are crazy. Just if you have a soft belly, just don't go around this one. But if you do, but like I guess the for us, we felt there was unevenness with how the gore was treated and how the sexual assault was treated.
Okay, I mean, I get that people wanted a bit more gore, but again, earlier I tried to explain some of the challenges we had. Again, remember that even though your film is going to Netflix, you still have to censor it in Nigeria. Well, censor it's actually called the National Film and Video Censors Board, even though what they really do is classification, right? So you still have to get that censorship certificate, right? And if you look at the rating, you see 16 plus. Now, I am a horror buff. I mean, I love horror films. At the same time, if it's I think sometimes excessive gore can, for some people, can be a put off as well. you know. So we did the practical effects of the blood, the slashed throats, the smashed faces, and all that. And yes, I understand some people want more, but I'm sorry we didn't give them that. you know, my apologies.
No, no, I hear you on like sometimes not going overboard on these things, but it's not really even a case of more gore. It's just so that it feels balanced, like it feels like the same movie. Because it feels like, even though like I know that there was still slash necks and like you said, smashed faces in there, but cutting away from the violence almost feels like again you're trying to censor. And so like I guess on the other hand is like is if you don't show that violence, do we need to see the sexual violence part as well? Because we could have as well done that, we could have as well
Okay,
done the race like that.
let's address this. Let's
Mm.
address this, right? I went to university in Port Harcourt, right? And as we know, apart from university, apart from secondary school, in the daily lives of people, women are sexually assaulted virtually every day, right? Um, it's, I mean, I personally believe Nigeria has a rape culture. So now trying to tell me to sort of gloss over it, I think it's a disservice to the victims, right? So, like I mentioned, before we did that scene, we had a long talk with the actress. She's not a child, she's an adult. She read the script and we had a long talk. And we were like, if you're not comfortable doing this, let's not do it. Let's not do this, right? And she said she could do it. She's here, you can ask her. Now, the scene in question, I timed it, right? The first sexual assault scene, the entire thing was 2 minutes, actually 1 minute, 57 seconds. And immediately it looked like, penetration was going to happen. We cut, right? There were, she was never exposed, right? Now that's in the part of the actor. But we needed to show her in that situation where which women find themselves who are victims of sexual assault where they lose agency, people who are much stronger than them, more powerful than them, overpower them and commit this violence, sexual violence against them. That's the reality, right? And that's what a lot of women have suffered. I know a woman whose doctor, you know, assaulted her in the hospital. So I think as much as it's triggering for people, we just wanted to show that this is enough motivation to want to kill, right? And that motivation had to have a a focus. That motivation had to have a it couldn't be glossed over. I don't know if I'm making any sense,
Yeah,
right?
I think
That
you know.
it's something too serious. It's a real problem we have in the society,
Mm.
and we were trying to show that this is a really really terrible thing, and there's so many women who are suffering not just the act itself, but also the aftermath, where they are blamed, where they are accused of somehow being um, responsible. Oh, what did you wear? Why did you go there? Right? And then you saw the mother superior's character, who is a woman in authority, who is supposed to help this, but instead, you know, she makes her feel like somehow she had a to play in her own assault, right? And so that's what we tried to do. We were not trying to. I mean, if you notice, there was no actual body parts shown. At no time was anybody, exposed or anything. And but we just wanted to show that this is a terrible thing and something has to be done about it. Even though in our case we had to use supernatural means to exact revenge.
Yeah, all right. Okay, understand what you're saying with that. It's just that. I would say we could apply that to the murders, and then we would, have the, because like it feels like it's one way for this, but it's not quite the same way for showing the kills. Which again, even like for Madame Koiko, I think her sexual assault makes sense in the context of the film because she's the one who takes on revenge. Like you said, she's the one who is going to go on to kill. But seems like it generally exists, or maybe I missed something, but it seems like it only exists for one to show that Mother Superior has been covering all of these allegations, all these atrocities, which is very strong. I thought like that was the strongest part of the film is looking at it from the covering of all these terrible things by authority figures, especially religious authority figures. It feels a little short when it just I never saw the point for Ibukun for it to happen to Ibukun and it to be that graphic. But if you're saying you wanted to show it, it's just like I know what an audience will hear. I know what like some of the people who had issues will hear is like it feels like it's one thing for the sexual rape scenes, but another thing for the murders.
Sorry, I don't get the question.
So I'm saying like someone who has the kind of person who has had an issue with the sexual assaulting, especially of Ibukun's character, not Madame Koike, because again, like I think Madame Koike's is somebody who tries to avenge what happened to her, but Ibukun's character, it didn't seem like it needed to be that long, or needed to be that graphic because we don't really justify it being that long. And what I'm saying is that like if you have it in there, and you're saying we just need to show what happens and how difficult this can be, we can show that also for the killings. We can show it just to keep the consistency, because now it looks like focus. It just feels like the focus is now off. But you don't actually have to answer to that because you feel like you've said enough. I'm just pointing out where somebody's going to have an issue. Is that they're going to feel this.
Gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
Okay. The other thing is in your role as the producer, and people, if you want to ask your questions, please, this is the time. You can request to speak, or you can drop it in the comment section. But as your role as a producer for Madame Koike, when does it finish, and what does that look? When does it finish, and what does it look like?
Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, this is the origin story. So my work actually doesn't end, right? So what I'm looking for now is, okay, the next film, the next series, the next film, the next thing. We have this property, it's ours. We've built it out. We have this IP. So what's next for this IP? So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm pushing for. So so my job isn't over. It doesn't end essentially. So this phase one, the origin has ended, right? The origin has ended, but Madame Koiko hasn't ended.
Well,
so my job. Sorry?
You have not been paid. How can it be over?
Who told you I've not been paid?
You said I thought you said you have not.
I said I've not collected my own fee.
Okay. Oh, I thought that's what. Okay.
So I said I've not collected my own producer fee. It doesn't mean I've not been paid.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Anyway, it seems like more fees are going to be dispersed. But anyway, let's hear some questions from the audience members. And again, if you do want to ask questions, if you don't want to come up, you can just comment underneath. Uchenna, please go on and ask your question. Uchenna, are you there?
Yes, I am. Just a moment. I'm sorry. Yeah, first of all, to Michael, I want to congratulate you for the success um, of the movie. It's been very encouraging, and every time that I see movies like this doing great on these international platforms, it's uh, it's quite inspiring, and we hope that uh, future movies do even better. So, I think I have kind of a two-part question that is that revolves around your relationship with Netflix. So, over the past few years, I felt a growing sense of despair about the future of Nigerian filmmaking because of the central position of theatrical distribution. And when I look at the box office numbers, it just makes me extremely gloomy because what it says to me is that if we rely on the cinemas, Nigerian cinema cannot um, progress beyond a certain level because it is just imprudent to make a movie that costs more than a certain amount. You just said 30 million. I was even thinking higher than that originally. I was thinking like 50. So people looked to the streamers as the savior, and I've also been a bit pessimistic about that too, because from all I hear, Netflix in particular, I can't talk about Prime, seems to be shortchanging Nigerian filmmakers um, when you correlate it to how much traffic they get for Nigerian content. I mean, when you look at Nigeria in particular, in terms of its population or the size of its audience, I mean, I talk a lot about the movies on YouTube and, the massive numbers that they get. So obviously we have the audience, but the question is nobody can figure out how to monetize it. And we thought that the streamers would be the way, but they don't really seem to pay as much as they would pay um, content from other countries that doesn't perform as well. So the question I want to ask you was whether you feel satisfied with your recoupment efforts and the compensation that you receive from Netflix. Second part of my question. Okay, I don't know if this is a fully formed question. You said that you started shopping to Netflix and Prime after you had already completed the work, so it's not as if they were involved in any way in the production. But I was interested in, a question I've always had is about the kind of notes that Netflix gives in terms of the casting. Um, because, being that they're so data and algorithm driven, I just wonder if they feel that there's certain Nollywood talent that has to be in everything. I mean, of course, that's no different from the star system in any film industry anywhere in the world. But with Netflix Nigeria, it just seems as if there's a very small core of actors that they seem to want to have in every movie. So when I saw your movie, I won't lie. I mean, when I saw Deyemi Okono, who is, make no mistake, a very fine actor. Anybody would be glad to have him in their production. But oftentimes when I just see him, I just always wonder, okay, is that a Netflix mandate that he was cast in that? But since you said that you didn't talk to Netflix before you did any of the production, obviously that's not the case. But was it something that you even thought about? Or is it just you just liked him because he's a great actor?
Sorry, can you be concise so that I know exactly what I'm answering?
Okay,
Because I think
I'm sorry about that. I
you've
have
said quite a
okay.
few things.
Okay,
So,
let me just break it down to the two basic points. Number one, are you happy with the money that you got from Netflix? Does it make it worthwhile considering what you spent on the production? Number two, does your uh, intention to market via Netflix or Amazon Prime affect your decisions with the casting? And I'm speaking specifically about, for example, Demi, who, that you always see a lot of complaints about how these Netflix movies always seem to have the same actors, and Demi is the number one of amongst them all. So I'm asking, is he there because he's a great actor, which he is, or are there some considerations like, okay, Demi makes it more marketable to Netflix?
okay, to answer your first question, like um, it was mentioned earlier, I used to be a banker, and we can never have enough money, right? So, unless Netflix paid me $10 million, I will still tell you I'm not happy with the money, right? So there's that. Um, So what you are alluding to, I think what they pay is a function of your markets. If we want, if as Nigerians, if we want more, if we want to have better negotiation, I think first we have to really, really develop our earning capacity in Nigeria. So the Korean market, they pay a lot more, like, because they have a huge TV market, right? In India, the TV market is 3 times the size of the cinema market. So again, I won't speak to Netflix on why they pay what they pay. I think it's a function, one, of your market, and two, a function of your negotiation and the content, right? Because I can tell you that what we were paid was quite a bit more than what some other people have been paid. On the second question, we didn't. We chose the actors based on the story and the kind of performances we wanted, right? And so that was for us, that was the driving force. I mean, the lead character in our film was a young lady called Martha. I can bet you've never seen her before, right? Um, Ireti Doyle, who is a fantastic, top notch. I mean, if you won't count three actors, female actors in Nigeria, to me, that Ireti Doyle will not be amongst them, right? Ireti Doyle was not lead. Chioma Akpota was not lead. Omomi Dada was not lead. I mean, these are people who their award cabinets are almost one whole room, right? So my point is, we chose based on story. We chose based on the best casting we thought we needed for this film. That's my answer. Again, because I didn't do a commissioned job, right? I can't speak to whether they tell people to put this actor or that actor. I can't speak to that. I can speak for my own. We chose based on the story, based on the characters.
All right, thank you. Uchenna, if you have another question, we'll ask you after Lori asks his question. Lori, do you have a question you wanted to ask me?
Oh yeah, good evening. Sorry, quick question. Okay, I have two questions rather. First is, was there a test screening done before the movie was done? Like, was there a test screening with anonymous people to give you feedback about the movie? And the second one, I don't know why I'll call this a question, but the movie kind of felt predictable, and you can classify it as you can say that the movie is an horror movie, right? But it felt predictable from like the get go. Like we already knew that, okay, this is the girl, and okay, I can't remember the new character's name, but I think one thing that horror movies always have is that plot twist, like throw the audience away from what they were expecting. So I don't know whether you're comfortable with the movie being predictable, or I don't know whether you knew it was predictable, but from the audience point of view, it was kind of predictable. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Sorry, what was your first question? Because the
think it
second isn't a question.
Okay. Okay. Was there a test screening done with anonymous people that watch it, then give you feedback on what they saw?
Anonymous, no. But there was a test screening with some industry professionals.
Okay, so yeah. Personally, I don't know. This is just my own personal belief, but I think most test screening should be done with anonymous people with different age groups and different people, so you can have a like more understanding of what you're producing and what you're. Okay, I'm not trying to teach you what to do. I'm sorry to make it sound weird, but I noticed that most Nigerian movies don't do that. They don't, like, they always show it among them friends, and there's always that kind of little bias kind of that's always there. Nobody will really give you exactly what they feel. So I just because I noticed, like, I just felt like there was not I just felt it when I watched it. So I'm sorry, I hope it doesn't offend. I'm not trying to offend you or anything.
No. I came of my own free will. I'm in my house. If you don't like me, come and beat me, as a former CBN governor used to say, right? So regarding your second, well, the point, it's not really a question. that you felt it was predictable. Well, maybe it was predictable to you. But again, remember, this is the origin story of a known character. Everybody knows who Madame Koi Koi is. Everybody knows what she does, right? So it's not exactly a whodunit, right? So it's not like, oh, who is killing these people? We all know from the beginning. It's in the name, Madame Koi Koi, right? So yeah.
No. I'm not talking about Manda Konkoi. I'm not talking about the Konkoi as a. I'm talking about the other characters. Like I was actually expecting the police officer to actually be the relative of the guy that raped the Manda Konkoi when she was alive. Then probably the girl was just a relative, and
Right.
she was. I don't know. It does something to throw people off. I don't know. Like just throw them
Yeah.
off. Throw them off. They'll be like everybody will be surprised and be like, oh, okay, wow, we didn't see that coming.
I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, Larry. To be honest, part of what I think after we saw chapter one, one thing we did was we asked people to make predictions about chapter two, and a lot of people sort of guessed the tide, but the tide was more or less, some people guessed the tide. Only one person did like a prediction that that was pretty good and specific, and that I don't think the film particularly foreshadowed. But sometimes that's not a bad thing, because I think also one of the things that Nollywood films are capable of doing is doing the most random plot twists where you haven't sowed any seed, and you just want to reap. But I also understand what you're saying in terms of like a lot of I think some people felt they were looking for a little bit more oomph and up in the chapter two. But yeah, anyway, I get what you're saying. I also understand that it doesn't particularly need to happen. All right, let's just move on to the next question from Creative Fingers. Creative Fingers, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, can you hear me, please?
Yeah.
Okay, good evening. I want to say um, congratulations to the producer because this particular film is captivating, so it takes the audience attention. Great job. But my first question is, do you think there could be more story development? And if you do you see how the main character was absent? Because I know Madame Koi Koi is the main character, but then she's only the physical world because of the new girl in the school. And then this rape scene is supposed to be um, a catalyst, right? That causes Madame Koi Koi to react or that causes something bad to happen. But then the main character was absent and wasn't connected to the girl that went through this, and then there was no conflict. They were not even trying to go back to back with the culprit, right? So that we could have that tension and everything, because there was so much potential with the idea captivating. But then the main character was not established thoroughly, in my opinion, right? Because if Madame Koiko is the main character and we know that she's in the school or she's present now because of the new girl, then the new girl is the main character. And then we needed to see her, use physical powers, use her intelligence, use these supernatural powers that she's fighting or doesn't know where it's coming from. We needed to see a merge. I don't know, but I feel like with the attention you already have and with the plans to keep it going, do you think the story really needs more attention to development, right?
Sorry, I'm a bit confused. The young girl who came into the school does not have supernatural powers. She is the bloodline of one of the initial attackers, and so her coming back into the town is what started this new wave of killings. So I'm not sure, except I'm not getting you right, but
Okay, yeah,
she does
but
not have
okay,
supernatural
should I
powers.
all right, let me come in there quickly. So I'm giving this feedback based on what was shown. You see, there were several instances where Madame Koi Koi would do something and then she would wake up from a sleep, right? So it felt like she would wake up with sweats and all of that. So it felt like it felt like something was going on in her unconscious, right? So what I understood was that Madame Koi Koi was operating with our unconscious, right? Because why else would she be
Oh
Why?
no. She was
Yeah. So
dreaming.
so
It's
again,
simply a nightmare. It was said several times. She was having nightmares of
no.
being
So what
chased
again? The
All
around.
right, okay, all right, okay.
uh,
Greater fingers, greater fingers. I look. I think what you miss is Nollywood Film Club discussions on this. It's just like want to keep the questions a bit more concise.
Yeah, so the question was starts from the start is like, do you think the story can, I mean, with the fact that you want to go ahead, do you think you should pay attention to development more so that because the complaints from the audience is majorly because there are some parts of the story that are not fully developed, like the main character?
The main character is fine. The main character is very fine.
All right. Uchenna, did you have a question you wanted to ask? All right. Yeah, if
I might have one, unless we're ending. I might have one later, but at the
we're
moment, no.
we're ending now. Mike has been generous with his time. I was hoping to keep this concise. So, yeah, no. Did you have a question you wanted to ask now?
I can't really do it right now, so that's all right.
Okay, all right. Thanks. All right. No, generally, thanks, Michael. There's one, I guess, final question. What's your hope for the future, especially in terms of the stories you talk about future development? You say your job has not ended. What's your hope in terms of, in fact, actually, what do you think the audience can do, or do you what do you think you can do? What do you think the audience can do for you? What's your hope for the future in terms of Madame Koi Koi?
So we want to call attention to authentic Nigerian stories. One of the things we've seen with the Koreans is they tell Korean stories in Korean. They don't even bother speaking English. They tell Korean stories, but these stories are so well done that they travel around the world, and we're all happy watching them, right? So for me, what we want to do is take this. I mean, that's why we called it the origin. Take this story and now go and explore all the different aspects, all the different versions, all the different um, ways, and the things that we've heard Madame Koi Koi do. So that for me is the next thing. Um, Incidentally, I don't know if you have a few minutes. Some of the actors are here. Nene is here. Martha is here. Uh, Who's this? Oh, Firecracker is here. So you may want to let them speak on, their experience and what they hope to see going forward because they're part of this journey with us.
I'm not sure if they have anything they want to say. Please,
So
any of the
guys,
actors,
if
feel free
you
to
have anything you want to
request.
say, just indicate.
Kevin, I see Kevin as well. Any of
Oh,
you,
Kevin is here.
um,
Oh boy.
and
Anyone?
I'll ask one question whilst the making up their mind. If they don't want to come up, that's also fine. Have you seen any of the S16 stuff like Juju Stories? Michael. Hello, Michael. Are you on mute?
Hello. Yes. Sorry. Juju Stories.
Yeah.
The Sorrel 16 collective.
Yes.
Yes, I have.
Okay, all right. I was there are aspects of some of the stories that reminded me of of Madame Coco. They also like to talk about this this connection between the spiritual and the physical. Obviously, they did Juju Stories, which is like dealing with some of our more darker myths. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But yeah, I thought I I was wondering whether I'm sure this was probably in the works before, but I was wondering whether they were part of, when maybe seeing something like that is also part of but it's part of the ecosystem, it's part of inspiration, it's part of encouragement, it's part of support.
I wouldn't say it was. I mean, but again, everything adds, right? Every little drop adds. The more people explore these different genres, our authentic stories, the better for all of us, you know. For example, now because we've done Madame Koi Koi and the audience response has been so good, it's going to encourage other people to begin to take more risks, to do stories, to do themes that are not, considered quote and unquote mainstream. So it all adds up. It all adds up. That's the way I look at it.
All right. Now, well, in the absence of people coming up, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thanks for answering our questions. Thanks for giving us your time. And I wish you all the best for the futures of all Madame Koi Koi and any other production-related activities.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right. And thanks, guys, for everyone who joined us. We appreciate it. Thanks for the people who asked questions, and thanks. When we will next week, we're back with discussing movies. We will be discussing a new Netflix original. So hope to see you there, and bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed listening and would like to join live, just follow us on Twitter at Iroko Critic and join us every Sunday 6 p.m. West African time on our spaces.